our malt comes in bags. And when it comes in whole grain form. What we then do is we run it through the mill, which is this piece of machinery right here. That milled barley then goes into the mash tun along with cold water, or with hot water from our hot liquor tank, which is that far vessel right over there. We drain that liquid out. It leaves the grain sitting on top. The liquid goes over, transfers over to the boil kettle. Boil kettle is where we add the hops. We boil the wort for about 1 hour, and we add hops in there at various points. We boil it for about 60 minutes. From the boil kettle, it goes through a heat exchanger to help cool the wort down, transferred by hose into the fermenter. Once it's in the fermenter, we add yeast to it. We can watch that fermentation is happening by these bubbles right here. That is actually the yeast that is creating CO2. The CO2 is going up to the top of the tank, following this tube down, and being discharged in there. We let it sit in this tank for about 3 weeks. During that process, what's happening is the yeast is continuing to eat all the sugars, create alcoholic product, creating beer. We will close the CO2 from going anyplace. The CO2 will start to build itself inside the tank and work itself into the beer and self-carbonate that beer. We then transfer it and we filter it. This is our DE filter. Once it's filtered, it goes into our bright beer tank. We need to carbonate the beer any further than what it is. It can be done in this tank, and it sits in this tank for about a day. And from that point, it's ready to be bottled. What Chris doing is grabbing these bottles, they're flipping over. That shoots sanitizer into the bottle around the neck. Those tubes come down, they shoot CO2 to clear the bottle of oxygen. Then starts to fill with beer. Those tubes will come back up, it'll shoot another round of CO2 to create that foam in that head cap. Get placed underneath these, get put on, capped on underneath these cylinders right there. Once it gets onto the belt, it then moves the spacer here will then go. Spaces them out. This little blue thing here blows the bottle off of any excess water. The sensor right here reads that there is a bottle coming, and it kicks out a label. That label then just gets wrapped on with the belt. From that point, Big Bad Ben takes them, throws them in a box, and they're ready to go out. It takes about 8 hours to actually brew a batch of beer, and then it sits in the fermenters for 3 weeks, and then it takes about a day to package it. So throughout the process of about 3 to 4 weeks, a beer is made.